So why is this issue of student retention so important? One, because we've solidly been at around 50% for a long, long time. I can show you data from the 1950s. It was 50%. And if I show it from last year, it's 50%. That's nationally, and it changes, of course. Issues of cost and quality. Guess what? It's expensive to get a college degree. For all the students in here, kind of pricey, huh? Does the cost of college scare you a little? It scares me. Yeah, it's scary. I've got 2 kids going to college right now, and for the next 5 years or so, I will always have at least 2 kids in college. I do well, you know, career-wise. It scares the living crud out of me of what it costs to send someone to college. And we have to start talking about something called ROI. What is the return on investment of sending someone to college, or paying yourself to go to college, or stopping after working for 15 years and sending yourself to college, when it's going to cost you potentially $80,000 or so to go? Right? It's a very formidable thing. So here's what we have here, and I realize if you're at the back it's hard to see. That's completely on you. You chose those seats. You know, these were free, so you chose the nosebleeders. I'll try and yell them out, though, so you know what they are. But this is a special study that the federal government does. I say does. Not right now, they don't. Oh, you'll see that in a minute, too. I do work for the federal government. We're not getting paid right now. True. And neither are my employees until those, well, let's not go there. I'm not a very happy camper. But this is a study that they survey beginning post-secondary students, wherever they start after high school. So 4-year, 2-year, public, private, even shorter programs, career colleges. And then they measure them 2 years later and then 6 years later. So that's pretty good. 6 years later, we find out how they did. So some of the data I'm going to show here are from that. And after 6 years, for all students, regardless of where they started, on average, across the U.S., 51% do not get a degree. 31% end up with a BA, 9% a certificate, 9% an associate's. Now let's look at 4-year students. 4-year public students, to be precise. For those who started the first time they ever went to college, and they could have been 24 and been the first time as well, 60% who started at a 4-year public ended up getting a bachelor's degree after 6 years. Okay? 35%, or 1/3, did not get a degree, 1% a certificate, 4% an associate's. All right? So this is what I learned about Sacramento State University on the internet. Hey, don't knock Wikipedia. That's not what this is from. Now, so I went to dig data, and this is what I found when I went to the U.S. Department of Education's website. That's because they hire consultants and contractors like me to do the work, and then they send out on that first day on October 1st, they send us out stop notices. They said, stop working because we can't pay you. Okay? So when they talk about this is my one little thing I'm going to say. When they talk about 800,000 people, and now it's down to 450 because of the work, putting the military back to work, 800,000, it's way more than that, because that doesn't even talk about the contractors out there. So it really does have an impact, and hopefully it'll be over before 2014. It'll be over this week, maybe. But this is what I found about Sacramento State. Average high school GPA 3.19. Not very meaningful, because they're relative. 49% of the freshmen are Pell eligible. 27% are underrepresented minorities. 26% are age 24 or older. That's significant. A quarter of your students are above traditional age. Now, 75% still are, or 74 if I do my math. 19% are part-time, so 1 out of every 5 students is a part-time student. Significant. The world is different for a part-time student. just like it is for an adult student. Very different. Life happens. SAT is 960. Percent admit, I said was 80%. 80% freshman retention rate. Now, this is the interesting part. Let's talk about cash. California has always been known in the country for the most affordable tuition. Well, I'm sorry. I get in trouble. I'm not supposed to use that word. Fees. In California, we have fees. Okay, so the fees in the in-state are around $6,600. Now, that's below the national average, okay, by almost a couple of grand. It's way more than it used to be in California, though. Way more. But still, $6,600, and if you're out of state, it's almost $18,000. That's typical. We really try and get it to the out-of-state people, because that's where we make the cash. It's true. It's okay. The in-state cost of attendance, this is the one that threw me. It's 22 grand. Now, if I take the fees off that, so if I take, and we can just round here, the 6,600, so let's say that's 7,000 to 22,000. That's a $15,000 difference for room and board and books and stuff like that. That number threw me for a loop. I've never seen that number. It's usually around 10,000. Here, it's around 15,000. Not sure what that's about. But if you are what we call a residential student, if you're a commuter, you're living at home, okay, we'll live with that, right? But 22 grand to live on campus here, whew, that's significant. That's significant. That could be an issue, right? It could be, yeah, right. Average net price after grants is $8,600, okay? That's pricey after grants. That means that you have to come up with loans or cash to pay that. Even in my world, that's a lot of money. I think for a lot of people who aren't in my world, it's a lot of money. One way or another. It's a real tricky thing. So here are the grad rates. Look at this right now. This is off collegeresults.org. I didn't pull it off the website here. And I certainly didn't pull it off the federal site. Even though they've got good data there too. After 4 years, 1 in 10 students graduate. Almost 1/3 after 5 years, and 42% at 6 years. Well, the reality is this. It's not good enough, right? Otherwise, I don't think I'd be speaking here. But again, there's strength in numbers. Almost every college or university in the country is facing this same issue. This is hard for a lot of reasons. We're teaching some students who are more at risk than ever. But we let them in. What did I say before? We let them in. We have a responsibility. So why should students care? Loss of revenue to the institution. There's a lower prestige and morale when you don't do success well. I just think it's a poor business model. You know, when we recruit, and if the registrar's here, we know this is true. When you recruit a freshman class, we enroll or we admit around 150% of what we want. Because we know so many are going to leave, not just in the first 3 weeks, not just in the first semester, but certainly in the first year. And we know beyond that. So we over-enroll. Now, you understand why, but it's insane. It's an insane way of thinking. And then we get all kind of warped out when we start thinking, say, well, why aren't we spending more time on keeping those students? We got to spend more effort on keeping the students we let in. It costs money to recruit students to any institution. And quite simply, it's just the right thing for us to do. We should care because of this next graphic. And this is federal data. Okay? And what it says is the gold bars are borrowers who completed a BA, and the blue bars are borrowers who dropped out. Okay? So, borrowers who dropped out, look at this. 1 in 5 defaulted on their student loans. Compared to those who graduated, 2%. Unemployment. 15% of borrowers who dropped out, did not receive a degree, were unemployed. And this is before the crash. This is way before the crash. And 7% of those who graduated. I don't like the 7%, but it's a lot better than 15, isn't it? But that's the one that scares me, the defaulting on student loans. Defaulting on student loans is a very bad thing. And I don't mean that facetiously. It's a really, really tarnishing thing that happens to people, because it generally forces them into a bankruptcy type situation, which means for the next 7 years or so, you're not getting a credit card, you're not getting a mortgage, you're not getting a car, at least not one with a payment. These are the things that happen when you default on a student loan. Now, you try and show me a student that goes to this institution or that does not have a student loan these days. It's like most of us faculty have student loans. You know, it's just a reality of this. So that's serious. So I want to show you a little data here just so you understand. These are older data, but it shows 12 years. These were 8th graders, and they were followed up for 12 years. And these are harder to see, so I'm just going to show you. What it tells you is that 92% of students got a high school degree of some type. 83% got a standard diploma. 92% got a standard diploma or GED or something else. 3/4 of them ended up in post-secondary education of some type, and 1/4 of them ended up getting a BA. That's of 8th graders. That sounds pretty good to me. That sounds okay. But now let's look at it by socioeconomic status. Okay? How many got a BA? If you're in the highest quartile of SES, 51% of all 8th graders ended up getting a bachelor's degree. Now, do you see the number above that? 7% of low income, low SES, similarly got a BA. That looks like an NFL score, 51-7. Okay. Not very good, okay? 51-7. You want to talk about equity? That ain't it. We look at it by race, ethnicity, and we look at 45% of BAs for Asians, 30% whites, and 16 and 14% respectively for blacks and Hispanics. We're doing better, but not near good enough.